back to the Layman's Law School. My name is Chace Hawk, and me, along with my co-hosts, Reid Sanders and Shawn Merzlak, we are going to hopefully teach you about the law today, demystify some of the things that are going on in the news with regard to the law, and maybe have a beer or two along the way.
Yeah. It's been a long week, tough week, a good week, but a tough week.
Extremely busy.
So,
but always a good week.
Without further ado, gentlemen, I always bring y'all special. This is called. I even look. See, this one's got a little dent in her. That lets you know she's aged. Little character, like myself. Yeah. So, got a couple dents in me.
You know how much I hate this.
I know. That's why I bring it every week.
I may have a
it's a good way to start the weekend.
Intentional infliction of emotional distress?
Yeah, well, you're going to have to prove that. I don't know.
And I'm kind of consenting to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like if we roll the footage back, the first time you took a sip, it was way worse than now. Like now you're getting accustomed to it, Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the best thing about it is that he doesn't like it.
Right.
Therefore, all those really weird beers that he drinks after it taste so much better.
Exactly. We're doing him a favor.
Exactly.
All right, Chace. Go for it.
It's very sweet of y'all. Very, very sweet. So today I want to take the opportunity to answer a question because we're going to learn about what an amicus brief is. And very recently, either just a very great amicus brief was filed or the greatest amicus brief
of all time
was filed. Right. And by The Onion. Have y'all read this brief?
Most of it.
I have read the majority of it, the good parts.
The good parts, yeah.
I read the funny parts.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. I read the funny parts.
That's right. So what this relates to is a gentleman by the name of Anthony Novak. He's an Ohio man, lives in a suburb of Ohio, so the largest suburb, called Parma. And he basically started a Facebook page parodying the local police department. And the reason he's doing this is Parma doesn't have a real stellar history.
Right.
Okay. The DOJ in the 1960s said the creation of Parma was basically the classic example of white flight.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Even though Cleveland is 51% African American, Parma is still 5% black. There have been the DOJ has investigated that particular police department for basically discriminating against police officers applying that were minorities, and it's
essentially every stereotype that you can that you've seen in movies, news, and everything else. Parma has done it.
That's right.
Whether it be stopping because you're African American, non-hiring. They had the renter. They wouldn't rent to African American. I mean, they've done it all.
Right.
They've run the gauntlet.
It's weird because it's in Ohio.
Right.
We think about these things generally or stereotypically of that happens in Mississippi and Alabama and in the South. This is Cleveland, Ohio.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a funny thing that people say. What you need to know is this particular place called Parma, and that suburb. And apparently in Cleveland, it's common for them to say the rest of the country makes fun of Cleveland. Cleveland makes fun of Parma. Yeah. What Anthony did was he created a Facebook page, made it look exactly like the police department page, and he posted basically 6 satirical parody posts as the police department. It was up for a total of 6 hours, and I have to say, fair, he's pretty good.
To be fair, we're talking about parodies and humor and First Amendment rights and all that today. I'm a student of comedy, not necessarily excel at it, but I've studied it, and not just watching stand up. I've actually studied what makes things funny, and I like it, and I enjoy the process of it. Stuff's pretty good.
Yeah,
stuff's pretty good. Stuff is pretty good.
Yeah, so
that's pretty good.
So one of the first ones he put up was basically an apology by the police department for failing to inform the public about an armed robbery of a Subway sandwich shop by a white man, while requesting information to bring to justice an African-American woman who was loitering in front of the store, in front of the shop during the robbery. So he's hitting upon those past. Some of the other things he did was basically he said that they're recruiting new candidates for the police department, and they had a 15-question multiple choice, and they basically just told it said, that
minorities don't apply.
Don't apply. Yeah. He followed that up with a gentleman that one of the police officers was being removed from the sex offender registry and being added as an honorary police officer.
Right.
And when the police department posted something on their actual Facebook page stating that, be aware, this is a fake page, he reposted their warning on his. And so why is this a legal case at all? Well, the Parma police didn't like that very much.
Obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
They actually subpoenaed information to try and figure out who had set the page up from Facebook, but they found out who it was before that, and they sent the SWAT team in to search his house. Got tablets, computers.
Yeah.
Because that was necessary.
100%. But it was kind of, to do that, they had to get a warrant, right? Sure. And so they had to find a law to show that they had probable cause to believe this person was actually committing a crime. And in Ohio, they have a felony statute that prohibits you from, quote, using any computer to disrupt, interrupt, or impair the function of any police operation. Now, what they claim was the cause or the interference was basically they got 11 phone calls.
Yep.
Calling to
just
ask,
inundated the Parma Police Department.
Yep. And none of these people actually thought that the website was real, and more or less were just calling to confirm and to let the police department know that this was actually, occurring. Well, they put him in jail for 4 days. Yeah. And so ultimately he was acquitted from committing this crime. But what's important to note is that in order to get the actual warrant, you have to go before a judge, and you have to show the judge he has probable cause that this crime has been committed. And so that weighed in heavily to the district courts, the local federal district courts, and Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals decision, because what happened was he then filed a civil lawsuit. And in the civil lawsuit, the police actually asserted what is called a qualified immunity defense. And
you can't touch us.
You can't.
Right.
The layman's term. Me and Shawn will break it down for you. It's really that, you've played Monopoly. You get out of jail free card. That's what it is. But it's civilly a get out of civilly jail free card. That's what it is.
Right. So the qualified immunity sort of doctrine is a judicially created doctrine that basically protects state officials from being held accountable at the federal level for violating a person's constitutional rights. And basically under this doctrine, if an officer or state actor will be immune from civil liability if the court has not previously stated that officer's act was unconstitutional in a prior decision. Basically what it means is that police officer has to understand that what they're doing is actually likely to violate a constitutional right.
Sure. Right.
So the most common way people see this is the Rodney King.
Yeah.
Those officers knew
right.
that when they were arresting him and they were beating for half an hour, that they were probably not warranted in doing that. Sure. Those types of things. You deprive a prisoner without water or food for 4 or 5 days and they die.
Yeah.
It's
one of to me it's kind of similar. We learned this in law school is if you are a new lawyer and the partner in the firm is telling you to do something illegal or not even illegal, unethical, and you're doing it, then you can still be debarred for doing that because you should have known. In the officer situation, if it's being done above you, then it's kind of you get out of jail free card. Yeah. If it's being done,
just following orders.
Follow an order, sir.
Right.
And so that doesn't go to the normal civilian citizen. It's especially for federal and state employees. Some state, not all states, but most states' employees.
Right. And the federal district court basically agreed that the qualified immunity didn't apply in this particular case, so that because they should have known that this was a protected right and free speech.
They should have known that nothing was illegal.
That's very true. Very true. The only thing when I was reading this case that I even thought about prior to, because I'd heard it on the news, I didn't read what the actual charge was. I assumed before reading up on it that it was going to be impersonating a police officer. I thought that's what they were going to try to
Sure.
weasel around, but that could, this is a Ohio law, and I don't know, most states probably don't have that law, but they certainly have where you can't impersonate a police officer.
Sure.
And so I'm curious to see where this goes.
Right. Well, I mean, at the federal, like I said, the federal district court level, the way it's gotten actually to the Supreme Court is that the federal district court said that they don't have qualified immunity. Well, the police officers appealed that to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals said the right of a person to actually take a post and repost it on their own Facebook page is not a recognized federal right, and that these police officers were basically within their right to reasonably assume that they had probable cause to actually go and arrest and put this guy in jail. Well, the Sixth Circuit and the federal district court disagree. When that happens, the parties have the right to actually apply for what's called certiorari. That means they're going to ask the Supreme Court to weigh in, and the Supreme Court can deny or accept that. Now, if they deny it, it means a Sixth Circuit bad ruling, in my opinion.
Right.
I'm just wondering how many of these judges in the Sixth Circuit reside in Parma.
Oh.
I mean, it's an odd. It's just an odd ruling to say that that they shouldn't have known that this total satirical thing that anybody who read it knew was a fallacy, was a joke.
Right.
I think is such an egregious thing that it should be criminally prosecuted.
And I think that's what you just said is the distinction. It's the knowledge that it's fake. The knowledge, and Chase, not to jump too far ahead, but if you don't know it's fake, I think that you should be like kind of goes with your gun theory that you can't have a gun till you go into the military. If you don't know this is fake, you definitely should not be allowed to own a gun. Yeah, because it's pretty obvious that it's fake.
Or vote.
Or vote. Any
Probably
of that.
Have children.
Have children. Procreate. Any of that.
All that. Yeah.
So, it like I said, if it'd be different if it was portraying itself to be real. It's not. It's humor. And now you may find it distasteful. You may not like it, but that's not for you.
Exactly.
To quote Ricky Gervais and now James Gordon.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
we've been talking
Sorry.
about this Amicus Curiae brief that's been filed by The Onion. So how is The Onion involved in this case at all? Can y'all help the listeners and viewers
I'll start talking about what The Onion is. And I do you read The Onion at all, Sean? A little bit here and there?
Rarely.
Yeah. Every now and then they got a really, really funny one. And I've always loved The Onion. I've read it for years, and it's just silliness. And but they make their money on making fun of politics, essentially, and creating stories that if you look at it for half a second, you can tell it's not real, but it's based on some kind of thing that happened in real life. Like they've posted about shootings in America or shootings at school. Every single time a new school shooting, they post the same article. And they've been doing it since, I think, 2014, 13. And so now that's become kind of a comedy in itself in that they're raising awareness of hey, there's a problem, but they don't even try to rewrite a new article. They're reposting the same article, which makes it funny, that
in and of itself.
Right.
Yeah. So they pose as an actual legitimate news organization, but the stories are so nonsensical and silly.
Right. And they have anti-Semitic stuff on there intentionally. And to see, and if people, and I've seen people think it's real. And I've seen people on Facebook post it saying, look at this, this terrible thing. I'm like, that's a joke. It's not real.
And it's all at proving a point, bringing something to the attention, getting people to talk about things.
Issue. But why they fit in here is that their business model is that they make money doing what this guy did, what Novak did. Yeah. So they are looking at this situation, one, and for comedic value, and two, they're going, if this guy can be arrested,
it can have a big impact on
us,
them.
And it can make us where we can't tell jokes about what's really happening in the world, what's happening in the news, and then our business model is gone. And so that's where their interest arises.
It comes in the... Well, the Amicus Curiae brief. Okay, basically, Amicus Curiae basically means friend of the court, and typically it's people that have a similar interest in the outcome of the case. And so in this case, the Onion doing parody, if they can be thrown in jail for doing these parodies, if they parody the FBI or another police department, they kind of want to weigh in and have some sort of say on that. Some of my favorite Onion stories, by the way.
Let me, before you start,
all right.
I want you to tell some of them, but for the viewers, I think it's important. This is something that's beat into us at law school. Is just because you feel a certain way about something doesn't give you an opportunity to go to any court. So you have to have standing, and the amicus brief that Chace is discussing allows the Onion to have standing. Me and Shawn or me and Chace or us three, we can't just create an issue for the Supreme Court. We have to have some reason why we can actually voice our opinion in it.
And then there's actually an application type. If we did have a genuine issue that we wanted to address that was coming up in some other case, we could make application with the court to file an amicus brief, and they would either allow that or disallow that based on what our knowledge, training, experience, why we have the necessary information to be a friend of the court. Friend of the court being I'm providing information to you that can be useful to you in this decision making process.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Chace.
Okay.
Here we go, baby.
So 2012, this was a story that got picked up in Iran. Because the Onion basically said that...
you better say my favorite one.
The Gallup poll of rural Americans, basically preferred President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad over President Barack Obama.
Now, first why that's funny is Ahmadinejad is off the movie Office Space.
Okay.
And Ahmadinejad was the guy who was getting fired, and they said... What's his name? Ahmadinejad? Well, not going to work here. I'll tell you that. And so they're taking a joke from a movie and putting it. I love it. It's beautiful how they weaved it in.
Anyway. But this is personally my favorite one because it got picked up by North Korea and China and reported as news. Okay. And the Onion story basically was declaring Kim Jong-un the sexiest man alive.
Right.
Yeah, that he was.
That was satire?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
sorry.
And that he was
handsome dude.
He was unmistakably cute and had a great cuddly side. Impeccable fashion sense and short hair.
Yeah. You gotta admit,
like a koala bear.
Yeah, and famously, now in 2017, they published a story where President Donald Trump left basically the nuclear football briefcase at Mar-a-Lago, which is they're basically, being a little bit prophetic. Being a little prophetic there back in 2017. But the way that they got involved in this was basically to write this brief to sort of help the court understand the importance of what this guy was doing, that it was parody, that this has to do with the First Amendment more than anything else. And, I just have to read some of the beginning of this so you'll kind of understand where they're going here. Let's see if I've done messed up all my papers here. All right. So to start out with, it says, this is how they start with their interest of the, in other words, you have to show that you have an interest in it.
And Chace, to give you a little second to catch your breath, I also want the listeners to understand that, so as lawyers, we always take it very careful of what we write to any judge. But if you're writing to the Supreme Court of the United States, I mean, the highest court in the land.
You want to be very formal and everything perfect.
And everything precise. And there's no joking around. There's no little quibs. I wrote a brief recently that was about a contractor issue, and I said if it smells like a contractor, walks like a contractor, it's probably a contractor. I would not write that in a brief to the Supreme Court. With that being said, please, Chace.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I want to give credit where credit's due. One of the Onion's head writers, the legend Mike Gillis, and lawyer Stephen Van. I'm not going to start that one. Stemport and Andrew Portigna. God, they couldn't have had
their names are fantastic.
Right, yeah, the Onion these are all real people. But these legends started out their brief this way. The Onion is the world's leading news publication, offering highly acclaimed, universally revered coverage of breaking national, international, and local news. Rising from its humble beginnings as a print newspaper in 1756, before the United States was founded, The Onion now enjoys a daily readership of 4.3 trillion. And has grown into the single most powerful and influential organization in human history. Now, the reason why you're laughing, okay, is you know that it's fake. In addition to maintaining the towering standard of excellence to which the rest of the industry aspires, The Onion supports more than 350,000 full-time and part-time journalists with numerous news bureaus and manual labor camps stationed around the world, with its members of editorial board who have served with distinction in an advisory capacity for such nations as China, Syria, Somalia, and the former Soviet Union. on
Big top free speech places.
Right.
On top of its journalistic pursuits, the Onion also owns and operates the majority of the world's transatlantic shipping lanes and stands on the nation's leading edge in matters of deforestation, strip mining, and proudly conducts tests on millions of animals daily.
They're just hitting all the points that are just gonna enrage.
Immediately getting to the point of what they represent,
absolutely,
as being satire and parody,
right?
Which it's odd for us, like you said, to see in a brief to the United States Supreme Court.
Right.
But it really lays, the groundwork
issue,
for what this issue is about.
Yep. I mean, it's a free speech issue, and it's one that I think we see more and more coming to the forefront in what can comedians say. I mean, we're getting backlash, not just cancel culture, but now you're starting to see it drip over into legal actions. Like what is allowed? Well, historically, and with the First Amendment, comedians can say whatever they want to say, as long as it doesn't enrage people to go act out and all that, as y'all know. But you can find it distasteful, but that doesn't mean it's illegal. And I think that in Novak's case, the city of Parm found it extremely distasteful, and they tried to make it illegal.
Yeah. One of my favorite other parts of the actual brief was the recognition of the types of people that clerk for the Supreme Court. For those of y'all don't know, judges a lot of times don't read most of the time the Supreme Court will, right?
But let's be real honest.
Yeah.
A lot of times judges don't read your brief at all.
Well,
at all.
Except for our local judges here in Richmond County, Columbia County, Aiken, and Edgefield.
And I love them, but I've been in a couple of them. They go, "What's this brief about?"
Yeah.
Well, they'll go back and read it. But so
if you're a legal clerk for a Supreme Court justice, you are usually a Latin nerd because these. So the Onion states. In quote, it says, "The Onion knows that the federal judiciary is staffed entirely of total Latin dorks. They sweetly whisper stare decisis into their spouse's ear.
Right.
They mutter Q bono under their breath as they pick up their neighbor's dog."
After their neighbor's dog.
After their neighbor's dog? Oh, yeah, I didn't read that right. Yeah, okay.
Well, and that's why I didn't end up as
picking
a
up
clerk.
The shit.
He's
picking up the shit after the dog.
I didn't end up as a clerk on the United States Supreme Court, even though I took 2 years of Latin in high school. Because by the time I got to law school, I had merely forgotten every single bit of Latin, with the exception of a few phrases that aren't necessarily.
I'm glad that you think that that's the
court
reason.
appropriate.
I think I'm glad you believe that that's the reason you weren't a Supreme Court justice or
no, just a clerk.
That's the only reason.
It's the only reason. It's the only reason. It's the only reason.
Well,
anyway,
So if you're interested in such things, it is an absolutely hilarious read. Give that brief a read, and I do think the Supreme Court will take this up, if for nothing else, to correct the, I think, absolutely terrible decision of the Sixth Circuit.
Well, let me pose y'all a question. So, if you have a parody situation, where I'll take it back one step further. All right, you're talking about free speech here. If you have a line, and now people think that they can say whatever, but the law we have free speech, but we don't have free speech. There are certain things that you can't say because it can enrage a crowd, like I've said before. Where does in comedy, do you think there's a line? Is there a line? Where does it stop? Where does it begin? And if you start down this slope of creating one, where's the end?
Yeah.
It's so limited. I mean, the First Amendment protects our free speech, whether or not you're a comedian, a political activist, a political person, a normal person on the street, and the limited types of things that are prohibited, are like you said, like running into a building and yelling, or a crowded movie theater yelling fire,
right.
or actually saying things that are promoting violence and actually arguably do in fact promote violence, things like that. So it's a very limited amount of speech that anyone in the United States, any legal framework in the United States is willing to try and regulate. And that's, basically what they're saying is that this is, fundamental First Amendment issue. And I think one of my favorite quotes that I knew even before law school is, I can't remember the justice that said it, but it was a First Amendment case, had to do with free speech, and he basically said that, regulating or censoring free speech or speech that you don't like is not the answer.
Right.
More speech is the answer.
Right.
So speech is about, generating debate, about people talking about things. So if you don't like what person A said, we don't have to criminalize or make illegal what that person said. It's your right to say the opposite,
right,
and try and convince other people or whatever that your point of view is the best. And that's really how our political society has grown and been founded upon.
Yeah. Well, I think too, one thing that is going to be interesting in the years to come in our future is there is going to we have a battle between the First Amendment and technology, so to speak.
Huge battle.
Right. And so that is going to continue to grow. We did a show on deepfake. And so sooner or later there's going to have to be a line drawn where you say, hey, you can't present this in a real way if you're deep faking Donald Trump and make people believe it. It's kind of like a speed limit, right? Yeah. I can drive faster than the speed limit, but some people can't. And some people can realize that this is a fake and some people can't. So, and I'm all for I'm just saying that the influence in technology and the way that you can communicate to people and how you can communicate to people and how many people you can communicate to is going to come into play in our lifetime in this issue, this First Amendment issue. This is just the beginning, in my opinion, of because the Onion was a newspaper and then it was online, and now we're going to have more and more of these, Anthony Novaks who are really funny, who start an idea. And so there's going to be more and more of that. Sooner or later, this is going to come to a head, and there's got to be a line drawn in the sand. And as y'all know, in the law, it's real easy to write a code. You can't do this. Can't say that. Whatever. But unless, and then there's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of little differences. And I just foresee that coming up in our lifetime and our viewers' lifetimes of what's going to take place with technology and freedom of speech.
Yeah, and I think, Reid, you touched upon something else that's in the news right now, and that is Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. And, Americans are strongly connected to their right to free speech. And these people being deplatformed off of YouTube and Twitter and that type of thing, they feel like that right is being taken away from them.
Even though it's a private entity.
That's right.
It's a mixture,
Yeah, and that I think that's getting pretty complex.
Right.
Right. But right now, there's government intervention and basically government regulation over things that are private companies. Georgia Power, okay, private companies.
Sure.
I guess South Company or something like that, right? But they regulate it because it's so essential to the actual functioning of of society. And I think at some point, we're going to have to come to terms with the internet and how it functions as a actual platform for free speech,
a public utility,
public utility. Exactly. Yeah. The problem with that is that it's, if you can go and post whatever you want, right? But you can't necessarily go post whatever you want anywhere you want. So imagine it like this. So everybody's favorite place to write who they love or some racist comment is on Reid's house, on the outside of it. Right?
That seems like a bad start.
Yeah, well, it is. I'm just saying. Should Reid have the ability to tell you as an American, you can't come and spray paint stuff on my house?
Right.
Yeah. Well, by extension, that's exactly the same thing. Twitter has a platform, has a house.
Here's the difference, though.
Yeah.
What if my house took up 3 states, and everybody that in those 3 states lived in my house? Now, do I have that right?
Well, if it's your house and you own it, then I would say no. I would say you have the right to tell them no.
Right. But what if my house houses 80% of the population of the United States, and they need my house? And I say, well, you can't say that at my house. Then what are we talking about? That's where it's going.
That's what really all of the a lot of the litigation that we're seeing now is with internet providers, Google, Facebook, social media places, about, there's federal law that says they're not responsible for third parties what they post on the site. The problem that I see with that, even though the law is on their side right now, is that they have the capabilities and the algorithms to determine if, say you had a totally Republican social media platform. You could put in place easily the algorithms that would totally take out any commentary that was pro-Democrat or pro the opposite side candidate. Regardless of truth, exactly. And the same thing that they're finding is that the United States government is in connection with these big companies, Google and Facebook, and they're trying to regulate and censor some of the speech. We saw it with people posting things about COVID. If you said anything about COVID, there'd be a warning at the bottom of regardless of whether you were saying something true or false. It would there'd be a warning saying this might be. And then people like Chace alluded to, you say something that anybody could say in any time, any town square, and you get banned from this particular platform for your voice.
It kind of is such a mixture of a whole lot of laws, because you have the First Amendment, and then you also have monopoly stuff that comes on, because if like Twitter, for example, and Google, I know there's some Bing users out there, but Google has become I
don't even know what that is.
An adjective, like a verb.
Chace, I'm sure does.
Google me.
It's a verb. Like it's like what Coke is in the South. It's not soda. It's grab me a Coke.
Yeah.
It could
Coca-Cola.
Be Pepsi. Right.
Just to be clear, everybody.
Mr. Officer. But Coke is, and tennis shoes. Tennis shoes are just regular whatever shoes. So even the verbiage, and so all this is going to come to a head where if one company, Google, for example, is the search engine for all of America, and they are limiting what you say, then you go...
What you say and what you see.
What you see. I'm sorry, not what you say, but what you search, what comes up when you search something, that's a problem. That's a problem. And I know this seems silly to bring up, because this is a kind of a funny case, because it's about comedy, but I believe all comedy kind of comes back around to the truth and what's happening.
Sure.
And that's what The Onion's whole point is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's been happening since Jonathan Swift. He wrote A Modest Proposal. He was talking about how the Irish were starving, and his modest proposal for solving this problem was to not burden the parents for their children anymore and have their parents eat their children. Right? He wasn't
to solve
the problem, right? And they alluded to that in the brief, and they said, we are in no way comparing ourselves to Jonathan Swift.
Right.
The writers of The Onion will be remembered in time memorial long after his name is forgotten. that overrated hack.
Overrated.
Yeah, that's how they refer to him. But all right, so I want to do a little live spitballing here.
All right.
All right. So.
Live fire.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. What
do we call this though? Since Crossfire's taken, I don't know all the new stuff. Put us in the hot seat.
Yeah, hot seat. That's right. All right.
Oh Lord.
So, most of these.
Was this in the email?
No, this is not in the email. 100%.
Just off the cuff.
Yeah, off the cuff. So, all right. So, all these social media companies and the executives have come out and they've actually done documentaries about this, where they basically are trying to manipulate and push stories, push things through your social media feed that will cause you to engage. Sure. They know that the things that will make you engage, are whatever the most extreme point of view is on that topic, right? For you, what will make you the most angry, what will make you the most enraged, and they push that topic, right? And they have pushed us as a country through that, when you go on your Facebook page or whatever.
Us into division.
Exactly. And knowingly done it.
Yep.
Do we have a public nuisance type charge or type cause of action?
I think
everybody's been affected similarly.
Please do.
I'll go first, and then you can correct me. I think that there's certainly a possibility of that, and I think that it is going to happen
at some point.
I don't think that it's quite there yet, but I think that we're not far from that, and it's going to be a large, huge law firm that has to take this.
Yeah.
Because
Hawk Law Group isn't going to take it on.
No, I mean, we're doing well, but we're not that. We need. You're probably talking 1,000 attorneys to handle something like this. But I see something has to happen because you can't continue this route. And as a country, in my opinion, where we can't sit and have different opinions and talk, and you can't do that intentionally. That would essentially be like us three, in my opinion, us three having this podcast, and let's say the topic is Donald Trump, right? And then I don't let Shawn hear, and I tell you, Shawn said this, and then you go to Shawn, and you say, Reid said this, and then me and Shawn are in a fight. We have the telephone game essentially working. Yeah, sure. Everybody's played the telephone game when you were a kid. That's what these big corporations, Silicon Valley, has done to us. Yeah. They're making us play the telephone game, and now we hate everybody.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you're thinking more about, is it a nuisance? Is there going to be litigation in the future? I think it is a problem that legislation needs to address.
100%.
Because what the current federal law that provides, darn near blanket protection for these internet service providers and platforms was, derived and meant so that the internet and the evolution of the internet wouldn't be crippled. That, they can't in any way at the beginning, of these platforms be responsible for what another person puts on the platform that they don't even know is there. So the example, the common example that's, cited to is somebody starts putting like child pornography on a platform. And, we can't be held responsible for that. As soon as we knew about it, we took it down. And we can't, go through the exhaustive search to find all of this stuff and remove it ourselves. Which is absolute total bullcrap because they're going through every single thing we post, seeing that if it's pro-Republican, pro-Democrat, if it's transgender, if it's, and they are using that information in their algorithm to promote stuff to us.
Yeah. Right.
So to have it one way and say, our total business model is off exploiting these people's talents, their mindset,
what they post,
post. And then on the other hand, saying, well, we can't ever be responsible for these, child pornography images, or when somebody is actively posting and trying to recruit members of ISIS, things like that. Yeah. No, their computer systems are very high tech, and they can figure it out.
I'm going back at you in the hot room, in the hot seat. I agree with you. I agree with you 100% that it has to come from legislation. But 2 issues. Legislation moves extremely slow, and they are old. These people don't understand
any of this. Yeah.
Zero. I barely can, and I'm 42. These guys are 80. The internet didn't even exist. They don't know how to use a mouse. They don't understand algorithms. They don't know the questions to ask. How do you make a law if you don't understand what the issue is?
Are you telling me
our law is built on find the issue, figure out how to correct the issue, and argue the issue? They can't figure out what the issue is. That's the problem, in my opinion.
Are you telling me that all of these politicians that are in their later years, someone else is typing their speeches for them?
I'd go affirmative on that.
Yeah.
News to me.
And apparently they're putting on the teleprompter telling them to pause. And these folks are so old that they will read, pause.
All I know is that if you double click a hyperlink, you shouldn't be making laws about the internet.
Yep. All the love to our elders out there. We love you dearly, and you know what? We wouldn't talk to you half as much if you didn't need help with your Apple TV login or how to
just restart it. Mom, just restart the router.
So it's great. It's great. It makes us feel useful.
Yeah,
we have value. Well, we've got one more thing before we let you go, and that is Today in Politics with Reid Sanders.
Got to cut to Reid for the current events. Yeah, and I didn't have a lot of time. Took my kids to the fair and other things were going on. We had a real busy week, as we spoke about. But I did find one that's a very short clip, and I thought it was amusing. Let's see.
I want to see Chace related to the law.
Yeah, related to the law.
You hate cops just because they're cops? The next time you get in trouble, call a crackhead.
Are you telling me John Kennedy doesn't understand computers and this intricate internet system?
Sounds like he understands crackheads.
Listen, if you don't like Google, go find a crackhead.
Yeah. No, I cannot relate that to the law. Aside from saying I
finally stumped you. I finally got you.
There might be need for legislation to basically make people that post shit like that ineligible for re-election. That would be my only
as you always say in most of the clips that I bring, these people are these are the decisions that they're making that they believe are good decisions. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
When in doubt, vote Senator Mack.
Gosh. Yeah, that's the twerking state senator?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. Oh, Lord. Okay. On that note, I'm gonna tell my joke as a way to close. I'm gonna add a little segment.
I like
it. This is a joke. I'm not gonna claim this one. This is, believe it or not, coming from Sadhguru, but I think it's appropriate given what we just saw.
Okay.
So we're on a farm. There's a pheasant and a bull, and the pheasant walks up to the bull and says, "Man, I wish I could still fly to the top of that tree. I used to be able to do it when I was young, but I can't do it. Can't fly to the top." And the bull says, "Well, if you eat some of my bullshit, right, by the third day of eating it, you'll be able to reach the top." And the pheasant's like, "Oh, okay." So first day he starts going, eats a little bit, gets to the first limb. Okay, eats a little bit the second day, gets to the third limb. Third day, he flies to the top of the tree. He's fat, happy, sitting at the top of the tree, and the old farmer sitting on his porch sees a big fat pheasant sitting at the top of the tree. He pulls out a shotgun and shoots it. And what's the moral of the story? Being full of bullshit will get you to the top, but it won't help you stay there.
I agree.
There you go.
As your attorney, I advise you to tune in next time where Reid is going to explain in detail the Erie Doctrine to you.
I'm going to explain in detail the McKinley slides.
Okay.
That's what we're going to do.
Yeah,
stay tuned for the Doctrine as well.
Yeah. Well, again, thank y'all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate it.
Bye.